Hey there, everybody. It's Dave here and Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers, been commenting publicly on the Minnesota Vikings for over 2.5 decades apiece. It's been a long time. And boy, have we got a show lined up for you today. We're going to start with JJ McCarthy. Who else? How he started out poorly and then turned into an absolute hero. We're going to be talking about this week in Vikings land, the news and notes that came out from the team and on the press, and we'll talk about that as well. And then in the third theme, we have the Drewster joining us for his segment of Inside the Numbers as we preview your Minnesota Vikings hosting the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. God. Hey there, everybody. It's Dave here and Darren's over there. How are things in the Great White North there, buddy?
Smoky again, man. We're choking with smoke, wildfire smoke here. Not because there's fires really nearby, but just the way the wind currents are blowing the smoke our way. So very smoky this morning. Very disappointed because it's actually a nice warm day and I could get out doing stuff, but you really can't because I'm going to choke to death if I go outside. Anyway.
Oh, well.
How about you? You doing okay?
Yeah, it's been a busy week and will continue to be, but it's been a fun week. And we've titled this show McCarthy's Rollercoaster Debut because you wanted to talk about him first in Theme 1.
Yes.
JJ McCarthy.
Indeed, yes. So I'm sure, and thanks everybody who's logged on so far on getting up with us to two old bloggers and or three old man's opinions because Drew's going to come on here later too. But yeah, I'm sure like just about everybody by now has, they've digested the JJ McCarthy debut on Monday Night Football against the Bears. You've probably by now seen a million hot takes on people on thinking their assessment on how he played. You may have watched some of the ex-quarterbacks who do podcasts on this thing every week and checked out what they had to say about JJ McCarthy. So maybe you're thinking, do I really need to hear another opinion on JJ McCarthy's debut? Well, maybe not, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, and whether you like it or not. And if you don't want to hear mine, just log off for 10 minutes, and we'll be done. But come back because Drew Bunting is going to be doing his. We're going to be doing This Week in Vikings Land after this, and then Drew Bunting, of course, is going to be doing his can't miss Inside the Numbers preview on the Vikings Falcons game on Sunday. So just a tip there, but I hope you stick around. So anyway. JJ McCarthy, his debut, watershed moment, Dave, for the Vikings and this franchise, because again, we've been looking for a guy to replace Fran Tarkenton since he retired in 78. And we've never been able to seem to get there. We thought we had it with Culpepper. We thought we might have had it with Teddy. Some people thought they had it with Cousins. It just hasn't happened. So big watershed moment. And I admit that coming into this game, Dave, how do I think JJ McCarthy did? Well, I'll admit it. I expected him. The things did not turn out the way he did not play like I expected, particularly in the first three quarters. Coming into this game, I knew he wasn't going to be flawless. Nobody, few quarterbacks are. But based on what I had read and seen in the little that he had played and all of his teammates talking, I expected that, he would be solid at least for pretty much the entire game. I figured that we'd heard that he had a good command of the huddle, so I expected that he'd be getting the plays in on time and called in pretty comfortable order. I expected that he would look confident in his throws. I expected him to be poised. I expected the Vikings offense to move the ball pretty consistently, especially because the Bears had their top 2 corners out, and they also had one of their starting linebackers who wasn't playing. So this defense was ripe to, things were set up pretty well for McCarthy and the Vikings. Well, for 3 quarters, that's not the way it went. Obviously, if I were to give a grade for McCarthy and the Vikings offense play, I'd give him an F. And if there was a worse grade than F, I probably would have given them that, because McCarthy looked like his clock was sped up on some plays, and he was playing a bit too fast. He didn't look confident in what he was seeing on the field. He held the ball a little bit too long at times, Dave. Looked a little jittery in the pocket, and that's partly because the pressure, the pass pocket was breaking down, but looked jittery there. He made the classic rookie mistake, of course, of throwing a pass to the sideline. That's a long throw, and the Bears cornerbacks were sitting on it, and of course they intercepted, take it to a pick six. That you were saying it, Dave. That's your welcome to the NFL moment. There was, early on, predicting the first and second quarter, you saw a lot of times where the clock, he wasn't getting the play call in time. I mean, the noise of the crowd affects that, but so many times where it's 1 second, 2 seconds to snap, and he's having to frantically slap his hands and yell to Ryan Kelly, we got to go. And that just leads to panic when you get the ball, and I think unsettles a quarterback and the offense a lot. So a lot of things that did not go well for McCarthy in those first 3 quarters. And 7 of our first 9 drives were 3 and outs, including the pick six. That is very bad. That was for the first 3 quarters. Then the last quarter, the fourth quarter, the Vikings' first 3 drives are touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And we know in their final drive, they weren't trying to score. They were just trying to run out the clock. So really pretty impressive. And in that fourth quarter, Dave, total opposite. He looked confident, composed. He threw a conviction. He made some, pretty strong throws in that fourth quarter. So a big turnaround. And what to make of that, Dave? Because I think, again, McCarthy did not play well in the first 3 quarters, but it's fair to say that he did not get a lot of help in the first 3 quarters either. Along with the issues that he had, we know that the offensive line couldn't really open up any holes in the running game, and we did not get the running game going at all in the first 3 quarters. I thought the game plan was pretty timid by KOC. The pass blocking, the pass blocking broke down. A lot of it was Justin School, who did not look very good, and he caused a lot of issues when McCarthy went back. JT O'Sullivan, one of those quarterbacks who does these podcasts, he pointed out that it wasn't just all McCarthy either. There was some issues with some of his receivers not getting proper depth on a few throws, or there was timing was messed up on motion where they weren't getting into their motion at the right point. These little details that make a difference. And then Justin Jefferson, who it's not too often I say this, but Jefferson did not have a very good game, slipping a little bit, had 2 drops on passes that weren't easy catches, but catches that he makes 99 times out of 100. And also, along with those, and 2, he was targeted 7 times. And again, 2 of those are 3 times that weren't completions to him, were drops by him, I would say. Adam Thielen kind of dropped a ball. So there was some issues there with ball security. Again, a lot of things that the Vikings teammates could have helped JJ McCarthy out to make it a better outing for him, I think. So a lot of issues there, but I still, the Vikings won. McCarthy played really well in that last quarter, Dave. But I think despite all that, the narrative would be, if the Vikings had lost this game, that JJ McCarthy Yes, he looked really good in the fourth quarter, but those first three quarters cost the Vikings the game. I think that would be the narrative now, instead of the way the narrative is, which is he really turned things around, and he got the Vikings back in the game and led them to a come from behind victory. So that kind of perspective, I think we got to keep in mind. But even with that, Dave, I feel encouraged about what I saw out there, and there's a long ways to go, but I think the reason I'm mostly encouraged is that the things that McCarthy struggled with in the game in the first three quarters, like you're reading the defenses and being clear in your mind what you're seeing, being confident in not seeing the field well, getting the plays in on time, the perhaps the obvious kind of the pick six, all of that stuff, being jumpy in the pocket. I think those are things that through practice, through more game experience, through more reps, those are things that a quarterback can improve on. And so it's experience and reps. He'll get better at that stuff. But the stuff that he did in the fourth quarter that led to the 3 touchdown drives, Dave, again, remaining poised when you've just thrown a pick six and the crowd is going nuts, and staying calm there, being confident after that when nothing has gone right in your game, and still being confident to rip the ball and make those throws to Jefferson, in the end zone, that sort of thing. The ability to rally your teammates and have them believe that, yes, you are going to turn things around. And they don't just think that this is hot air. They actually believe it and think that McCarthy is going to do it. Those types of things, the way he settled himself in the pocket, the ability to stay confident and throw with conviction and confidence late in the game after you have, again, thrown a pick six and hardly completed any passes. That's stuff that I don't think that you can teach. I think that is mindset, between the ears kind of stuff, Dave, that you either have or you don't have. And so that is why I feel encouraged about JJ McCarthy, because I think in the situation we saw McCarthy in the fourth quarter, with how badly things had gone up to that point, I don't think there's many second-year quarterbacks in their first NFL start who could have remained composed and turned it around like JJ McCarthy did. And I can think of a lot of veteran quarterbacks. One of them is going to be standing on the sidelines Sunday for the opposing team, who I wouldn't bet on them being able to turn things around like McCarthy did either. So that is why I am very enthused by what McCarthy did. And again, if you were, and it's a long process, like we said last week, Dave. But if you're worried about what you saw from McCarthy in the past 3 quarters, or the first 3 quarters of Sunday's game, think about that fourth quarter and the things that he did. I think that should ease your worries a little bit. And I'm just going to bear with me a little bit here, Dave, but I for a little bit of interest, I looked at the stats of the first NFL start of the 5 other quarterbacks who were drafted with McCarthy last year. And here's how they did. Again, just if you're worried about what you saw from McCarthy in Chicago. So Caleb Williams, in his first start against the Titans, he was 14 for 29, 93 passing yards, 0 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions, was sacked twice, 58.7 QBR, quarterback rating. And the Bears somehow won that game 27-17. Jaden Daniels against the Bucs. He went 17 for 24, 184 yards, no touchdown passes thrown, no interceptions, was sacked twice, did rush for 16 rushes for 88 yards and 2 touchdown runs. So a lot of rushing yards there, a 93.1 quarterback rating. But the Commies lost to the Bucs 37-20. Looking at here, another guy, Drake May. First start against the Texans, 20 for 34, 243 passing yards, 3 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, was sacked 4 times. He had an 85.3 quarterback rating in that game. The Patriots lost to the Texans 41-21. You're looking at Bo Nix next. And against the Seahawks, he went 26 for 42. He only threw for 138 yards in that game. No touchdowns, two
against the
interceptions.
G-men.
Yeah. No, that was Penix. I'm talking about Bo Nix.
Sorry.
Here. Yeah. 47.5 quarterback rating. The Broncos lost that game to the Seahawks 26-20. And now Michael Penix against the G-men, he was 18 for 27, 202 passing yards, no touchdown passes. He threw one interception. He wasn't sacked, 73.4 quarterback rating. The Falcons won that game 34-7. So outside of Daniels performed the best in his first start out of all those five guys. But through the air, he didn't do a lot of damage. It was the rushing where he separated himself from the pack in that one. But I think it's fair to say all five of those guys struggled in those games. None of them played lights out. 3 of the 5 lost their first ones. And again, the 2 wins, well, I don't know how the Bears won that game, but it's because the Titans were more woeful than the Bears were when you throw for 93 passing yards, and they didn't run for a whole lot in that game either. And Penix and the Falcons, well, they were playing a 2-12 Giants team that had Drew Lock as the starting quarterback in that game, and they have nothing to play for. So that's a pretty soft landing for your first NFL start for Penix. So this is all a long way of saying, Dave, that McCarthy had the kind of first start that all of his peers, had in their first NFL start. And yes, there's going to be ups and downs. But again, if you were worried about what you saw, just keep those first starts from Daniels, who was all world last year, and Nix, who really improved at the end of the year, and even Drake May, who people thought played pretty well in his late season stint as a starter with New England. Keep that in mind because, again, McCarthy struggled, yes, but they all did in their first start. And we got a long way to go here, Dave. Another 16 regular season games to go. There's going to be ups and downs, but the McCarthy area, we've got a long way to go. And there's a lot more to be seen and a lot more to be assessed on what kind of player McCarthy is. But again, struggles, but what he did well, especially in the fourth quarter, again, I don't think you can teach that in a lot of cases. And that's why I continue to be, along with his talent and his mobility, that's why I continue to be pretty enthused about his future. And I think he's going to have a very good future in Minnesota.
I did too. And you forgot Sam Darnold didn't have a smooth start either. And he went on to win 14 games. So and for a young QB, I think it was wonderful. I like the fact that after he threw that pick six, which Justin Jefferson's claimed responsibility for, which says something about Justin Jefferson and his leadership.
Mm-hmm.
But that it was the slap in the face. It was all right, we got this. And of course, everybody's heard the "where would you rather be" comment that he made in the huddle, the quote. After that, everybody seemed to, what I've said is the whole McVay, KOC, wrap your players in the bubble during preseason, they shook the rust off. And all the timing seemed to come into play after that pick six. And suddenly they were moving smoothly, whether it be Jordan Mason on running the ball, obviously J.J. McCarthy throwing the ball. It became a thing of beauty. And then just to watch the Bears crumble was fun too.
That's always fun. There was that moment, I think, Dave, we all saw it after the pick six where they flashed to the sidelines and KOC is talking to McCarthy, and Phil Mackey and Jeremiah Searles and Alex Boone talked about this in the O-line committee podcast as well. But just looking at that, and you could see very calm conversation going on between KOC and McCarthy about that play. And KOC talked about it later where, and I think some people could even read KOC's lips in that conversation where he said, "You made the right read, blah, 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 blah. Here's what you needed to do. You protected yourself. They just made a play." And I thought that was when I was watching the game, I thought could be an important point, because some coaches like Matt LaFleur might go over to their rookie or their second year quarterback and ream them out for what had just happened. But KLC, like he always does, he's a fiery guy, but he's only fiery at the right times and for the right reasons, I think. And he's not going to get fiery mad at his players a lot, at least publicly. And I thought that was very important tone setter by KOC at that point when everything is going wrong and your inexperienced quarterback has just made the classic inexperienced quarterback mistake, and it settled things down, I think. Just an important thing. And another reason why I really like Kevin O'Connell and the way he handles himself during games.
Mm-hmm. It was wonderful. Now on to theme 2. This week in Vikings land, and I want to start it off with, if you noticed, I'm wearing the SKOL Fest t-shirt. Tonight is the night downtown. SKOL Fest for 2025. The season is going to kick off. Most of the gang is already in town. They're having a blast. I wish I was there, but alas, I'm not. I'm there in spirit, though. For all the purple gang that's up there, enjoy yourselves, drink responsibly, and skol on our Vikings.
For sure.
And now, here we go. Jordan Mason.
Yeah, going to get into snap counts, Dave, on this one, because one game does not, I think, make for doesn't give you, I think, an indication of. You can't be sure from the first game, particularly the first game, whether the snap counts are an indication of how the Vikings are going to use personnel. But I thought there was some interesting stuff in there. And the first one has to do with Jordan Mason, where he outsnapped on offensive snaps, anyway, Aaron Jones slightly, 30-28 in this game. And we'd heard in training camp, Dave, where there was the ideal situation would be where Mason and Jones would probably be 50-50 in carries, but I wanted to see how it would play out. It sort of did play out that way in this first game, but this has led, I think, to some Vikings media to already proclaiming that Jordan Mason is the number one running back for the Vikings after one game. And I just think, hey, now, slow down. Let's not give up on old man Jones just yet, because how I think it's going to work is that Kevin O'Connell is going to use the hot hand. Last year, there was no hot hand other than Aaron Jones, and that's why Aaron Jones, I think, was never outsnapped at the running back position in games where he was healthy and played the full game. I think he did get outsnapped in the Jets game in London, but he got injured and didn't play later on. But last year that just didn't happen. Aaron Jones was on the field a lot. And this year that's going to change. But I don't think what you saw as far as rushing carries with Mason getting a lot more than Jones, again, that I don't think that's going to be the norm. It just depends on the flow of the game and who is performing better and getting more of those runs. Because I think pretty clear that Mason is a more powerful runner. He's better at making guys like shrugging off would-be tacklers and breaking tackles than Aaron Jones. But Aaron Jones is a better receiver. And Aaron Jones is a very good pass protector on blocking. Mason did well in that last game too, but Jones is very good in that, so he's not a liability. And I think Jones, he hasn't looked like he's lost any explosiveness to me, but he just didn't have a lot of daylight to run to on a lot of his carries in that game. That could totally change tomorrow night in Minnesota, and the script could be flipped as far as offensive snaps. But again, I don't think Jones is running back 1B right now after one game. I think it's going to continually be a situation of hot hand, who's just having the better game, and KOC is going to ride that, which he was smart enough to realize in the Bears game that you're going to ride Jordan Mason. Mason is the guy that's grinding out the tough yards and getting the bigger runs. I'm going to hand the ball up to him. But again, Sunday night could be the opposite. The good thing is that you've got two really good ones, I think, that you can trust.
Do you know the split from last week?
Split as far as
carries.
Well, or Mason had,
I should say, snaps.
Well, it was 30-28 for Mason as far as offensive snaps. But I think carries wise, it was what Mason had 15 or 16, and Jones had 8 or 9, I believe.
PFF, I was listening to them, and they said they broke it down. It was 50% and 54%. And they go, well, that equals more than 100. And they go, because 4%, they were both on the field at the same time. And that is a sweet thing.
And something we wondered about, I think, before, whether there would be they'd try to use the two backs and get him in there. And of course, Jones probably in that case is going to be more the receiver. But anyhow, thought that was interesting. Other snap count things that I thought were notable along the defensive line. Jonathan Allen played 52 defensive snaps in that game, 78% of the defensive snaps. That is a lot. And it's going to be interesting to see whether the Vikings and Brian Flores continue to ride Jonathan Allen more than the other defensive linemen. I can't remember a defensive lineman last year playing that many defensive snaps, that high percentage defensive snaps in a game. But Allen played a lot of them. Again, we'll have to see throughout the year. I don't see that. I see him playing a little bit less than that normally, but was a lot of snaps for him. That surprised me. I thought he played reasonably well. He missed a sack that he could have had, but he had a lot there. But also notable, the Brian Flores used all 5 defensive linemen that he dressed in that game, which I don't remember him doing last year at all. And they had a lot. You had Javon Hargrave played 45 defensive snaps. Jalen Redmond played 32. Levi Drake Rodriguez played 20. And then Tyrion Ingram Dawkins played 10. So they all got some play. Flores was rotating them all in at some point in time during the game. And interesting, I thought notable that Ingram Dawkins got 10 defensive snaps in his first game as a rookie, because the Vikings have thrown a lot of darts at day 3 defensive linemen in all 4 of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah's drafts. They did it last year with Ingram Dawkins. The year before, they did it with Levi Drake Rodriguez, drafting him in the 7th round. The year before that, they drafted Jalen Roy in the 5th round. And the year before that, they had the kid from Minnesota, whose last name I can never pronounce. He was drafted in the 5th round too. But in all of those cases, as a rookie last year, Levi Drake Rodriguez, he was inactive almost all the time on Sundays. He only played 6 defensive snaps all year. The year before that, in 2023, Jalen Roy, again, was inactive most of the time, didn't play a whole lot of defensive snaps, certainly less than 100, maybe even less than that. And the University of Minnesota kid, same thing in 2022, inactive on game day almost all the time. Well, Ingram Dawkins, not inactive in the season opener, and he actually played 10 defensive snaps, already 4 more than Levi Drake Rodriguez played all of last year. So, and he batted down a pass in one of those snaps. So the Vikings haven't hit on these dart throws at defensive line, although a little bit too early to tell about Levi Drake Rodriguez. He may still make it. But Ingram Dawkins, the Vikings might have something here if Brian Flores already trusts a rookie like him to play 10 defensive snaps, and possibly he's going to get more throughout the season. So I thought that was notable. Along a couple other things about the snap counts, Dallas Turner, 29 defensive snaps in that game. That would have been on the high end of how many Turner played last year, but that was last year. This year, the buzz coming out of training camp and preseason was he's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's smarter. He's ready to, he's like a third starting edge rusher. Well, that did not happen Monday night against the Bears. He played, again, snaps that would have been on the high end for him as a rookie. hey, he's going to get a shot this Sunday, unfortunately, to play a lot more. What this does say to me, though, is that the Vikings, Brian, like Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, are just really, really good. And Brian Flores cannot afford to have those two guys off the field at all. They played over 90% of the defensive snaps against the Bears. That is a lot of work for them, even though we didn't have we had a low defensive snap count in this game, but that's a lot of work for those guys. They're going to need a bit more rest than that. And Turner's the guy you think is going to be the person that Flores uses to give them some rest. But can he earn more playing time, Dave? That's the question. He's going to get it Sunday night, but he hasn't earned it so far in 18 NFL games that he's played. So still waiting for Turner to turn it on. Although I think reading some of the media reports on Turner, they felt he played pretty well in the snaps that he had. I remember there was one particular play, he didn't make the tackle, but he set a really nice edge and stuff, which led to a no gain for the Bears on a running play by DeAndre Swift. But I guess for me, you look for more of those splash plays, right? And he didn't really have those in that game, but still waiting for that. Finally,
Brian Flores admitted this week he didn't realize that it was so few snaps for him, and that he hadn't intended that. He had intended a lot more snaps, and that was basically a mistake on his part. But well, we'll take it. We still won.
They still won.
Did great.
It did, and I think again, is it a mistake though, or you're just like, man, I can't take Grenard out there. I can't take Van Ginkel out of there right now. I can't take Javon Hargrave out of there, really. I can't take Blake Cashman out of there. There's a lot of things going on there, maybe personnel-wise, where it might be tough to put Turner in there at times because he's got some great players that he's got to jump ahead of, and he's not just quite there yet. But we're waiting for that to happen. Final thing about the snap counts, I wondered why the Vikings only kept 4 cornerbacks when they broke from training camp and into the preseasons. Well, maybe Monday we found out why, because Jeff Okudah, your number 3 cornerback, only played 16 defensive snaps in that game, whereas Jay Ward, who's a safety, played 25, which makes me wonder, and I didn't watch the tape on this one, but did the Vikings, Ward was in there because the Vikings were playing when they had to have an extra coverage guy in there, where they go into the big nickel a lot more than using Okudah, who's an actual bona fide corner. What the big nickel being either you have Metellus in coverage, or Theo Jackson in coverage, or Jay Ward in coverage, and that's why Ward played a lot more snaps than Okudah. Flores always says that how he plays defense really depends on the team that they're playing. So again, hard to say whether that Okudah is going to continue to have a low snap count like this, or whether it's going to be dependent on the opponent. But another something that I found interesting from those snap counts.
Very, very interesting. You missed Cashman, the segment.
Oh, I didn't. I still got to talk about him. There's a couple of things I got to talk about on this, but I want to talk about the other thing about this is the Blake Cashman injury. When I saw him going up lame as he was chasing Caleb Williams in the third quarter, I thought to myself, he's going to be out a while with that. It looks like he pulled his hamstring, and the Vikings put him on the injured reserve on Thursday. So he's out for 4 games at a minimum, and it might be longer than that. And this is a big loss, Dave. Last year, I was midway through the year, I think you said that this guy is the Vikings MVP. I don't think you said defensive MVP. You said MVP. Like, he just played really well. I know Eric Wilson played well in his as a replacement in the Chicago game, and he's going to be the guy taking Cashman's reps while Cashman is out. But the Vikings really have nobody else on the linebacking roster who does what Cashman does, who's like very effective as a blitzer, very effective in run defense, but also very effective as a coverage linebacker. When I think of Wilson, Ivan Pace Jr., and the 2 other guys, Kobe King, the rookie, and Austin Keys, the undrafted rookie free agent, those guys I think are all more kind of see ball, hit player with the ball kind of linebackers who aren't known for their pass coverage. So that's an issue for the Vikings. And last year when Cashman he missed 3 games. I think he had turf toe or something like that. In those 3 games, the Vikings lost 2 of them, and they gave up 31 points to Detroit and 30 points to the Rams in those 2 losses, and the 31 points they gave up to Detroit matched the most points they gave up in any game that season, which was the season final against Detroit, where they also gave up 31 points. So the Vikings really, I don't think it was just the eye test. The stats would say that the Vikings defense suffered without Cashman in there too. So him being out 4 games at least, and maybe more, that's a big blow to this defense, which also has a blow tomorrow because Andrew Van Ginkel is going to miss the game because of concussion. But Cashman is a big loss, and we really don't have anybody with his other linebackers that have the complete skill set that he has. So a bit of a worry there. And hopefully he gets back after 4 games and he's ready to go. But hamstring injuries, those are tough ones.
They can be. They can be.
The last thing I want to mention about this week in Vikings land is we talked about McCarthy earlier in the first segment, of course, but there's one play and I wanted to bring up, and it was the 14-yard run that McCarthy had in the 4th quarter, the run pass option that he ran. I loved the play call. I don't just love it because of the result, although that was excellent, but I also loved the timing of it and the fact that we hadn't used it throughout the game. I thought it was just a great play call by Kevin O'Connell, and it made me think, is this something that the run pass option, is the read option, whatever you want to call it, is this something that the Vikings is going to be an offensive staple for the 2025 Vikings offense with J.J. McCarthy running it? Because at Michigan, which was, he was a quarterback there for 3 years. He's at Michigan. They use that pretty regularly in their offense. So J.J. McCarthy is comfortable running it, and he's only 2 years removed from running it a lot at the collegiate level. I think this could be a really good weapon for the Vikings. And when they called it in that game, perfect play call for a few reasons. One was you had Jordan Mason in the game, and he'd been gashing the Bears the whole 4th quarter and before that even a bit too. You knew on 3rd and 1, late in the 4th quarter, deep inside the Bears territory, the Bears were going to bite hard on any kind of play fake to Jordan Mason, thinking that he was going to get the ball. The Bears defense was gambling. I think that KOC was not going to put the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands and have him throw for a first down there. So I think if you hand the ball off to Jordan Mason there, as tough a runner as he is, with all the Bears defense, all 11 of them crashing down, playing hard in the run, there's a very good chance that play is going to get stuffed for no gain or a negative gain, and then you're kicking a field goal and you're only up by 6 points at that point. How do you attack that? What's the solution to that? You run read option. You give McCarthy the ball. He tucks the ball into Jordan Mason's stomach. He reads the strong side edge guy and makes a decision from there. And sure enough, when he put the ball into Jordan Mason's stomach, the edge guy, which I think was Odengbo from the Bears, bit hard on inside, was crashing, and McCarthy reads that, pulls it out, and he's got green grass for 14 yards in front of him, only one guy to beat, and TJ Hawkinson had him locked up. So I just thought it was a masterful play call, and I think the Vikings could use this a lot more. You don't want to overdo it, but the Vikings couldn't run this play with any credibility in the past, I think, because when Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, Dave, defense isn't going to fall for that because they don't respect. Cousins doesn't have the foot speed to have the defense respect that. Sam Darnold did have the foot speed, but he is a classic drop back guy, big arm. He just hadn't been asked to do that at the pro level. But McCarthy, he did a lot in college, and they did it once here at a perfect time against the Bears. I think that I'm hoping that the Vikings pull this out a few more times in the season, because I think it could be a very effective play for them.
I agree. It was a brilliant call and brilliant execution, and I saw that defensive end crash inside, and I'd go, yes. you saw it. He took the step. He took the step and he bit and he didn't do his reads because he's not expecting it. And and then JJ squirting underneath TJ Hawkinson to get in the end zone was also a good thing. I thought it was great. And then the crowd afterwards, I'm sure you've seen the clip. Somebody was on the sidelines filming, and they got Brian O'Neill coming in and saying some choice words about his quarterback. I thought it was great. Anyways, that's it to theme 2. What comes after theme 2?
Theme 3, baby. Inside the numbers.
And this time, we are talking about the Vikings versus the Falcons. And you know what that means? It means it's time for Drew Bunting.
The base ripper. Look at that. We got the helmets this week. We'll have the helmets all year. I don't know if people could see them. Welcome, guys. Welcome, everybody out there. Thanks for having me on today. You guys, I really appreciate it. This will be a record-setting week for me because usually I get fired after being on a show for a week. So we are setting a record this week, guys, and we got a big game ahead of us, and I'm really looking forward to talking about this with you. And I want to mention right off the bat, Darren, thanks for mentioning the JJ run and kind of breaking it down like you did. In my opinion, best call Kevin O'Connell's made since he's been head coach here. Best call. When you consider the timing, how the game was going, the flow of the game, that was his best call as a Vikings head coach, in my opinion. But
hey, that's saying something.
All
right, we got a game tomorrow night there, Drewster.
We got the home opener, guys. You got to be fired up about that. And SKOL Fest going on, all that. Matter of fact, I'm flying out after listening to you talk about SKOL Fest. I'll be taking some whiskey and going to that after we do this today. This is the second straight week. The Vikings are at primetime for their home opener. They're playing primetime. One of only 2 teams that have gotten primetime games the first 2 weeks. Do you know the other team?
That team from Wisconsin?
No, sir. It would be the Los Angeles Chargers, who started out eight days ago in Kansas City. They played that Friday night game, and then they got the Monday nighter this week against the Raiders. Vikings, Chargers, only 2 teams to get prime time the first 2 weeks. That Bowl preview, yo? We don't know.
Pretty surprised that this is actually that they chose this game as their Sunday nighter because I don't know, Falcons, not really. Is it the Penix McCarthy thing?
I think it is the national championship from 2023. And if we're going to go with that angle, we're going to have Minnesota beat Michigan because Penix got destroyed that day. Darren, if you remember that, he was confused, out of sorts. Every other word you want to use, he did nothing against Michigan. And so if we're going to replay that game, let's have Minnesota be the Michigan defense this week. But that's probably the angle they were coming from, and that's probably how they're going to hype it. In terms of home openers, guys, since 2000, the Vikings are 15-10. If we go inside the numbers on that in home openers, 2 of those 25 games were against Atlanta. The 2007 was some rookie running back named Adrian Peterson, and then in 2019, and Vikings won both of those home opening games. So they played since 2000. They played Atlanta twice on the home openers. This will be the 35th meeting, 35 all time between the Vikings and the Falcons. The Vikings are 22-12 in the previous 34. So they've always fared pretty well against Atlanta. Those are all players, Steve Bartkowski, all those guys. It doesn't matter now, but I always like to bring up the past of the team we're playing this week. They played last year. Darren and I talked about this yesterday because we talk online. We have really nothing going on in our lives, so we talk Vikings. But that game was close, Darren. At the 3 quarters, it was 21-21. I mean, Atlanta tied it up, and then the Vikings went on to score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But the score looks a lot more, tilted than it really was. If you remember that game, and I know you do.
I do. We were in a lot of trouble in the first half of that one, and it wasn't going very well. Vikings are having trouble protecting Darnold. They weren't stopping the Falcons on offense. And then Cousins did Cousins things. That's kind of how I describe it.
Darnold, 22, 28, 347, and 5 touchdowns. And how about Addison? How about Addison and JJ? I didn't have the chance to fully research as we go inside the numbers, but Addison and Jefferson, 15 catches total, about 260 yards and 5 touchdown receptions between both those. That might be a record for those two. I'm not certain of that, but it's got to be up there. They had a hell of a game, those two. Of course, we don't have Addison this year, but we'll make up for it in some of those RPO runs that JJ is going to make. Vikings open up at 4.5 favorites. The over-under is 44.5. If I was a betting man,
which you aren't.
Yes,
I would bet,
you are not.
Just to throw that out there, I would bet over on the over, and I would take the Vikings to cover. If any of you are betting out there, that's how the Drewster would do it. And I've been known to win a bet or two and also lose a bet or two. That's what I got so far. Before we get to key one, I wanted to ask you, how do you guys feel about this, the pressure of the game, first off, going in with this, with Atlanta and everything and the home opener and everything rolling in? Do you feel pretty good about it right offhand?
Dave, you want to chime in first? Or
I think he's going to be ripped and raring to go. If he was going to be jacked, he's probably a little bit tired for having this son. Micah McCarthy was born here, 36 hours ago or whatever. And he's already done the daddy deal, and they see him carrying the baby out of the hospital and all that sort of stuff. So everybody's doing great that way. Now, he makes enough that he has a nanny, so I would suspect that he does have one lined up, or at least one of the parents doing the grandparent thing so he can sleep and be ready. But we'll find out. No, I think it's going to be great. Thank you, Too Evil to Hope. Appreciate it. As long as Sean Mannion starts, we're guaranteed the W. Yes, of course. But I think it's going to be cool, and I think he's also going to think of the national championship game.
I think he is too.
And how he beat Penix. And Penix is going to think about the national championship game and dread that.
No, he's not. He doesn't want to think about that at all.
And I should have brought up the picture of it where he's got the towel over his head and he's crying there at the end. But it is, I think there's so much going on in Minneapolis today and tomorrow. You got the home opener. First off, you got SKOL Fest tonight. Then you got the home opener tomorrow. You have the game. It is the first time J.J. McCarthy takes a snap at U.S. Bank Stadium in front of this wild regular season crowd. And the crowd is going to be absolutely nuts. They are going to be going wild. Why? Because there's multiple storylines. Adam Thielen returns. You have JJ, the hero. He comes in. You have Jared Allen getting his Hall of Fame ring during halftime. And there's something supposedly spectacular scheduled for that. It's supposed to blow away him riding in on a horse. And so I'm curious to catch that one. But it is going to be wild. And I think the Purple Faithful, besides being wound up for the game, are going to be into it, helping the team. And we already know the team fires on all cylinders when the crowd gets into it. They feed off the crowd. And sure. It is going to be an absolute blast, and I can't wait for kickoff and to start to watch this thing.
Yeah. How about Darren? You want to add to that, or you want me to keep moving on here?
No, you could keep moving on. I'll chime in a few things. I do hope that we know that J.J. McCarthy won't have to deal with crowd noise in this one like he did in Chicago, and maybe that'll help settle him into.
Monday Night Football, it's prime time. It's his first start, biggest stage in football. He's walking in hostile environment, walking up to the line. Oh, I got two linebackers in the gap. Are they in two deep? Are they in cover one? What are they doing right here? Oh, I got to run my motion. What's the snap count? My wife's water's going to break. I mean, he's got a lot going on.
Yeah, and
There's
Uncle
a
Ed
lot
is
going
over here
on.
in the stands. Yeah.
I'm not making excuses for that. I agree with everything Darren said at the top of this show about J.J. McCarthy and the play and everything of the first three quarters, but it's going to be a lot more settled down for this game, I think, which gets us right into our first key of the game, the Bijan effect. Bijan, I don't know what he likes to be called. I don't care, but you got to shut him down. This is one of the premier running backs in the league, and this is Atlanta's ticket to winning this game will be through him. The Vikings have to make somebody else beat them. And it's not just on the ground. This guy could kill you with receptions, as he did to Tampa Bay week 1. He had, what did he have? 6 catches for 100 yards and a TD. He only ran for 24 yards on 12 carries. And even I can do the math. That's somewhere around 1 or 2 a carry. Somewhere. I'm not a math guy. But he killed him in the air. Either way, he could kill you both ways. You have to take him out completely and make somebody else beat you, because that's Atlanta's bread and butter. Is Bijan Robinson. He's a premier back. The dude's a game changer. And if you watch that first game against Tampa Bay, they took him out of the run game. But Atlanta, if you watch that game, I don't know if either of you guys rewatched it, Atlanta kind of gave that game away, Darren, in my opinion. They outgained Tampa Bay by 100 yards. They had 7 more first downs, going inside the numbers on that. And they held the ball for 35 minutes, which in the NFL, if you can get to 35, you're kind of dominating the other team. And there's many stretches in that game where Tampa Bay's high-powered so-called offense couldn't do anything. So Atlanta's no scrub on defense. But if you're not going to shut Robinson down, you're probably not going to win this game. That's how much they rely on his productivity, Darren. But if you watch the first game, they had bad penalties, and Young Ho Cooch, he blew the game there at the end. He couldn't hit the tying thing. So how did you think? Do you think, if you watch that game, didn't you think Atlanta should have won that game?
I did, but I didn't feel, even though your stats are pretty compelling, I didn't feel it was as lopsided as you felt it was. I thought it was a pretty even game. And you're right. Koo, the kicker, he blew it. He hit the upright on another field goal, and it went through. He doinked it and went through. So he could have missed 2 of them, and he's under some pressure. So like you said, Atlanta's not a scrub. Besides Robinson, they got Darnell Mooney is coming back. He had a really good game against the Vikings, at least in the first half last year at US Bank Stadium. Drake London is a big target. He's a very good wide receiver. I know Pitts isn't the unicorn that he was predicted to be out of when he came out of Florida, but he's a guy that you have to account for. So they've got some weapons, which worry me, especially when you don't have Van Ginkel and you're not going to have Cashman.
Right. Did you see the kicker they brought to their practice squad this week?
Mr. John Parker Romo.
Yeah, we don't want him kicking against us, because we know what'll happen. He'll hit 360 yarders. We want to leave him on the practice squad, and we'd all rather face the Cooch anyway. Who doesn't? Key number 2. Key number 2. We put up my key number 2. I like to do it by keys because you guys do themes. I don't want to override your theme action. I like the theme 1, theme 2, Vikings land. I call this one.
Melds with your music background too.
Mm-hmm. It does. EADG. That's how the strings go on a bass, right? You thump the E, but you pluck the G. Okay. Key 2, Mason and Jonesy. Darren, that's my key 2. Vikings rush attack against Atlanta's 3-4. Now, it's not the Flores 3-4 that we talked about, but it is a 3-4 defense that they'll be facing. Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich defense got kind of ripped by Tampa Bay last week. Even though the leading rusher was Baker Mayfield, they were still giving up 4.5 yards per carry to Tampa Bay. Atlanta was. If the Vikings get 4.5 per carry, Atlanta doesn't have much of a shot, to be honest with you, because that just opens up everything else, and they'll get trounced. Their only option is to really shut us down, shut our running backs down. That's why the running backs of the Vikings are my second key, because if it can be around 4.5 yards a rush, they're going to be in trouble because, as you know, they are not a shootout offense. Atlanta, they're not. They want to slow the game down, Darren, Dave. They want to keep both JJs on the sidelines. They want to limit the possessions, and they want to have a grind out game like they had against Tampa last week. If the Vikings get that run game going and open up everything, they are in serious trouble because they're not a shootout team. But you get to the strong point of their team, which is the secondary. After we talk about this run game, they almost want you to pass. The Vikings torched them really bad last year, but that's why they went out and spent 2 of their first 4 picks in the draft, Atlanta did, on secondary players. And they knew they were trashy back there, and they had to shore that up, and that's kind of where they went with Xavier Watson and the other guy, Billy Bowman, who I know Darren Campbell really liked in college, Bowman, and he was hoping the Vikings would pursue him. They want to shore up their secondary. 2 of the best players on their team are A.J. Terrell and safety Jesse Bates. They have a really good secondary. My point being with Jonesy and Mason are, if they shut us down, Darren, on the run game, their strong point is the secondary. This could be a grind-out game. This could really get to be a grind-out game close in the fourth quarter, which we don't want. That's the key to running.
One point about the secondary I want to make before I forget, because
yeah, go ahead.
My short, but with that secondary, as good as those guys look like they are, the rookies, and as good as AJ Terrell and Bates are, last week in the Tampa game, Drew, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of success Tampa Bay had was targeting ex-Viking Mike Hughes, who plays a lot and is still not very good. So if you want to go after a guy, Mike Hughes is the guy you go after. And last year they went after him big time and were very successful as well. So I think he's a big weak link there overall, and the Vikings need to take advantage of that.
That's a great point, because I do think their secondary, as much as I think they've improved and they're a strong point of their team, they do have that big asterisk with Hughes. And O'Connell knows it. I expect Thielen to get a lot more action this week over on the other side, because they're going to probably have Terrell covering or following JJ. But that is a great point. Because if they get the run game going and they could light up Hughes, the Vikings are it's all going to work off that run game. So we'll have to see on that. Also, Darren forgot to mention Armin Watts when he was mentioning his defensive tackles. I got that written in my notes. But those 2 draft picks definitely made them better, and they're going to have to take that in consideration. What do we got for key 3? Oh, the lack of deep passing, which is surprising, because at the University of Washington, that's what Penix was known for. Even at the University of Indiana, where he played before he went to the University of Washington, the book on him was the guy is accurate as hell as deep passing, which I don't know if last week was an anomaly, but last week I had him, after I watched that game, I charted it. Past 15 yards, he was 0 for 7 against Tampa Bay. And a lot of them were really bad misses. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, that's got to have Flores licking his chops, Dave. No time for Penix to throw, but he threw the ball terribly with deep routes last week, and that's got to be a key in the book, because if that's kind of what Michigan did. Michigan got the lead on him, forced him to pass, and told him pass it deep, and he couldn't do it on them either. So I think it's going to be right along the lines of the same game plan. Pressure the hell out of him, take away that short to mid-range game, make him try to beat you deep, and he didn't do it against Tampa. Tampa wasn't scared of his long passing game at all last week. And then the second part of key 3 is right tackle Elijah Wilkinson. If you watch that game, that guy was terrible. He was getting eaten alive over there. Ugly day for Wilkinson. He had 3 pressures allowed, 2 false starts, and a bunch of blown blocks. Jonathan Gennard, yo! How about a couple sacks over there on that side, Darren? How about a couple sacks on that side? That would be great to see. But that's good. My mismatch of the day is probably that. You know,
Atlanta's also working in a new center to replace Drew Dahlman. So Hargrave, Allen, the boys up the middle.
That redo of the offensive line certainly didn't go as planned, with McGarry and Dahlman leaving. And then these two guys coming in, Dave, they did not have it figured out last week. It was bad. And it wasn't crowd noise. It was a home opener. So you can't blame crowd noise. But if they don't figure it out this week, they're going to get their tits licked, as we like to say at Vikings Report. The blocking looked shoddy last week for Atlanta. And I'm hoping it looks shoddy again, because that's a huge, huge part of this game is pressure, shutting down Bijan and getting pressure on Penix so he throws some picks. But yeah, the redo of their offensive line still hasn't clicked. I'm not saying it'll be like that in 8 weeks, but it didn't look good last week against Tampa Bay.
And it looked like Atlanta's offense kind of knew that as well, because Penix was getting the ball out really quick most of the time.
Right. I mean, they only had Bijan Robinson and Algier could only muster 48 yards on the ground against Tampa. They don't have a good run defense, I don't think, as the Vikings. I don't have them ranked their run defense as high as the Vikings. So that's a big part of the game. Just win. When you got games like this, you got to win. It's on my 4 count for the games you got to have, the FS games you got to have. All you have to do is control the line of scrimmage. Offense and defense, you control the line of scrimmage in a game like this and you should overpower and you don't beat yourself, because it's one of those games as you research and watch last week and watch what Atlanta played last week. I don't think they're going to play as bad in there, but as we go to the game plan, my game plan and players of the game, first off, my players of the game's got to be both JJs. I think McCarthy hits a long one to Jefferson, and I think he has a much better game, but I think Justin Jefferson's going to go off this. And I missed it with Hawkinson last week. I called for Hawkinson to have a lot of catches, but we are going to delete that part of the show. We are not going to relive that part of the show. But I think it's JJ, control Bijan. How about my first one on the game plan? How about start fast, guys? I mean, come on. You got to start games better than that. 11 yards in the first quarter. You can't come out slothy foot, dragging ass around. Even if your wife's water is about to break, you got to come out. They got to have a better start, Darren. They can't come out with 3 and outs against Atlanta at home in the home opener.
No. I think that's where the doubt could seep in a bit for the Vikings offensively. If again, they have another slow start, a couple of 3 and outs to start early, and then you get behind 7-0 again. And then, what was the old Berman saying, 1's a fluke, 2 is something else, 3's a trend, or when you do that. So then there's going to be some doubt in there. I think, yes. One thing JJ McCarthy did not do last game was they didn't have that 10-play, 80-yard touchdown drive where their third touchdown, I think they went 68 yards, so that was a decent one. But the 2 other touchdown drives, they had really good field position right around midfield to, short field to work with to get some points, which I think helped take a little bit of pressure off of JJ and also helped get the run game going a bit. The defense just couldn't key on run and not worry about the pass so much. So, yeah, start early, get him some confidence, get rolling. Don't let doubt creep in. Although McCarthy, does he have any doubt that he can't do this? He sure strikes me as a kid who's that doesn't cross his mind very much.
When he's struggling, he just gets more angry, and that's what he did at Michigan. That's what you saw last week. But I'd like to not have to go through that to get the victory. I mean, we're playing Philly. We're playing Baltimore last week. We're not winning that game. So you can't be inconsistent. You can't play 1 quarter of football in the NFL. Thank God that, what's that, Coach Ben Johnson doesn't know how to use a kickoff or use the play clock. What a fool. That was just, what a dumbass. Not to keep talking about that game, but he blew that game on that kickoff. Why don't you kick that thing out of bounds and save it at 2:02? What a fool. Okay. We like to talk about fools.
No, go Chicago.
I was watching it going. I looked at Ruby, and she's just shaking her head going. Also, when JJ was running into the end zone, Ruby said, "Oh, my God, Hawkinson, he's going to get caught." I thought the flag was coming out. I thought it was coming out on a hold right there. But game plan. Control Bijan, Darren. Do not let him have big plays. He's going to get yards, but you can't give him the 50, 60-yard plays. You got to control him. O'Connell's been good at controlling major running backs when he's gotten here. Zimmer did a really good job with that too. Maybe it's a Vikings thing. I don't know. But when you got a superstar running back coming in, going to get yards, don't let him have the big play. Atlanta with the soft passing attack, nothing deep. you got to creep up and take away some of those dig routes or stick routes. Just win the line of scrimmage, everything will fall into place. Exploit Atlanta's offensive line, because they were guessing last week. They were having a lot of problems on that offensive line, a lot of problems. Made the Bears look like the 67 pack. The Bears were supposed to have problems last week, and they seemed to hold it together on the edge. But also kicker Koo. What about the Cooch? I got a stat for you inside the numbers. After he missed from 44 yards, he is now 48 for 63, Darren. 48 for 63 in his career on 40 to 49-yard attempts for 76%. That makes you lose your job quicker than you ever know. But they seem to have the curse on the kicker there thing. Wow, that was kind of a mind-opening. 76%. You got to be better in modern football than that. Players of the game, both JJ's and Grenard and Dallas Turner. Grenard and Dallas Turner, 3.5 sacks combined. That's what I think. And that's pretty much all I have. I have worked it through my mind and my brain and my head. I do it every week. After my research, I put the numbers together. I crunch them all together. I ask the parrots, who do you think is going to do this and that, and running game and secondary and defense and all that. I give the Vikings a 70.8% chance of winning this game. 70. That's pretty high on my. I'm pretty strict with my numbers, David and Darren. You know that. Here's a quick one as I end my time here. In 2024, the Vikings were 10-0 when the other team had 60 yards or more of penalty yards. Make it 11-0 because the Bears had 127. 11-0 since last year's season. That's my tasty tidbit of the week. That is 11-0. If Atlanta gets 60 yards and penalties, it's over, right? That's my notes. That's my take. I'd like to get your guys' comment on the game. And that's it for me. I hope everybody's happy with that preview.
I am.
If not, I got more. We can get into a lot more tasty tidbits if you want.
No, it's very good. However, I did want to cover one thing.
What's that?
The injury report.
That's something we need to cover every week.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you guys talk about that because the Vikings.
We've got two out with a concussion, so Kuda and Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel is the one I'm worried about because he landed on his head. And I think it was the last play type deal. Speaking of last plays, we had Ty Chandler go on IR because he hurt his knee. Christian Darrisaw is still out. Which, why didn't they just put him on 4-game IR if that's the case? Wasn't he going to be ready?
Yeah, I did. I know. I think Kelsey addressed this yesterday, I believe, Dave and Drew, but like he was a full participant the first day, right? And then the second day he was limited or he didn't play at all. That was a red flag to me. Like, did he have swelling in the knee or did something not feel right after that? They're ramping up his activity. But then KLC said yesterday he didn't have a setback. So I guess they're being, extra cautious with him. Tyler Williams is the guy who's, setting all those benchmarks.
And he's the one.
So maybe it's next week, maybe it's not. But you're right. Like if he ends up sitting out 4 games, you'll kind of wonder, well, why didn't you just put him on the IR and save a roster spot? You're kind of leaving yourself a bit short doing this. But they must have felt confident that he'd be ready to play at least by game 2, and it hasn't worked out that way.
Now, if he's next week, it's against a much tougher opponent. Next 2 weeks are much tougher opponents.
Well, I don't think we want Justin SKOL dueling with Trey Hendrickson. Maybe that's just
We do not.
Or the following week against TJ Watt, or one of the Watt brothers, whatever it is, on the Steelers. No. So, which brings the question, is Justin SKOL starting this week? Should
Well,
should they move Rouse over?
Who they got left? Ron Yeri? Who else will be coming in?
No, they move Rouse over from back up to right to back up to left. Rouse.
I mean, you're talking about SKOL at least has a lot of experience there with Tampa Bay playing left tackle. I would be hard pressed to see Rouse being put in there at this point.
Well, Rouse looked better in the preseason, but hey, it's preseason training camp, so
I think they do give SKOL another shot, and it also helps that watching that Tampa Atlanta game last week, guys, is the Atlanta brought in Leonard Floyd. He was pretty quiet. James Pierce, the rookie from Tennessee, man, he looks like a cornerback out there.
Right.
He is not a very big guy, fast, but he didn't get much done. The rookie Jalen Walker from Georgia I didn't notice him at all. So on the outside, they created some pressure, but they don't have a lot of scary guys out there yet. And Leonard Floyd's over 30. So I think they give SKOL a shot to see how he does against Atlanta's not so great outside rushers. If it doesn't go well, then I think next week you could see a change. Like Jonas in the postgame show, which I didn't think of, is like maybe you take Blake Brandel, who has played tackle in the past, and you switch him out there instead of going with the Rouse, who's an unknown quantity at the NFL level.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Well, yeah, it was just Jonas's point, not mine.
The whole point is to get Darisaw back on the field.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the big picture point. One thing I want to mention, maybe two quick things. Billy Bowman, Atlanta's going to be really, if he can't go, they're in more trouble than they thought, even with Hughes out there. I'm glad you brought up that Hughes point, Darren. I didn't have it in my notes, but that's why we work as a team. We collaborate. And you brought up the Hughes point. And it really, I thank you for that because I missed that in my notes. The other thing is, I'm really fired up, even though Van Ginkel's like my favorite defensive player. He almost had another Van Ginkel moment. He almost picked that thing off. He almost had it. I was standing up cheering, going, damn it, he almost had it. I am really looking forward to see what Dallas Turner does in a starting role for a football game. I am excited to see what Dallas Turner does after the learning he's had over the last year and a half. He hasn't really had a starting. Has he started in any football games yet?
No. And the most defensive snaps he's had as a pro was in last year's season opener against Giants. I think he had 35 defensive snaps, and that was the most he had all season. And Drew, you're right. I don't know if excited is the right word, but we've talked about Dallas Turner a lot on this show in the past, Dave and I, and like a bit my concerns, and I'm always concerned about shit. So Dave rolls his eyes.
You are always.
but about like, when's he gonna, be consistently doing something? Well, to be fair to Turner, it's pretty hard to make impact plays when you're only playing 15 defensive snaps a game, right, like he did sometimes, or 20. Like, you really got to maximize your opportunities. And sometimes the play call, and you can see it on some of the film, like Turner is the decoy, right? Like, he's occupying for somebody else to do something on a stunt. So he's doing his job. Just his job is not to be the guy. The play isn't being run for him per se. So, but he's going to be playing. He's going to be out there on the field, probably 40, 50 defensive snaps Sunday night. Yeah. Well, hopefully we don't play that many, Dave.
True.
Yeah, defensive. But he's going to play more than he ever has. And this is going to be his chance to show Brian Flores, hey, man, Van Ginkel and Grenard, I know they're really good, but I'm really good too. Get me in there some more, coach.
Well, I got him down for a sack and a half, so don't make me look stupid like Hawkinson did. Sack and a half.
Hey, pretty hard to catch a bunch of balls, though, when you're going 3 and out all the time.
The Vikings only had 46 plays offensively. That's not good.
That's wild.
You want to be around 64,
around
62.
60. Yeah.
That they fell like 20 plays short, but I expect a much different Vikings team this week, taking care of business with the home crowd being crazy, like David said. I mean, they can get some false starts on Atlanta. Put them behind the chains. Atlanta doesn't have much of a shot on long third and longs. They don't. So let's. It's pretty easy for Flores to game plan this one. For Brian Flores to game plan this game. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it. Good.
Hey, so am I. It's going to be a fun game. absolutely a blast.
We do have some big defensive guys who aren't going to be playing that game. Like as we mentioned, hopefully we think we've got a pretty capable replacement for Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner. Let's see how the young guy does. And I'm also hopefully Eric Wilson holds up again with a full game of starting reps in place of Cashman. I feel as the games go on, kind of like last year too, even though Wilson's better than Grugier Hill, I think as a backup, I think over the 3 or 4 games, you'll start to notice the drop off between Wilson and Cashman defensively. But maybe not. But that's what I'm expecting over the long haul.
And hopefully this week, special teams doesn't do 3 quarters well and then one shanked punt. Hopefully Mr. Wright is on target.
We didn't talk about the special teams really at all, guys, but Reichard nails the 59-yarder in Soldier Field.
Yeah.
You got the Miles Price punt returns.
Fantastic.
Were fantastic.
Wasn't that the longest kick at Soldier Field? The longest field goal at Soldier Field?
Tied for the longest.
That stadium's been there for what, 231 years? I mean, that stadium has been there a while. That was a hell of a kick.
And the
for the
grass
comeback.
still shows like it had cows grazing on it.
That was a big kick at the time of that game. That was a huge, good bring up.
So it all plays into it. But I don't know if people are expecting this to be an easy win for the Vikings. I'm not expecting that, but I am expecting them to win. And I am expecting the offense to give a better account of itself for a full 4 quarters than it did in the Bears game. Although you couldn't have much worse than what they did the first 3 quarters of that game. 7 3 and outs. Ouch.
That is boom. Well said right there.
All right. Tomorrow night, we come on live at the 2-minute warning. Myself, Darren, Tyler, and Jonas will all join at different times. Tyler's got to do his video after the game, but we'll join and I'll sit here and call the game for you as we sit there and watch the final 2 minutes, and then we'll go into the post game and we'll react together. Hopefully it's a happy one like Monday night was. And we can't wait.
Yeah, bring it on. At least we've got Sunday morning, afternoon of stress-free football watching, and then the stress ramps up in early evening.
We gotta watch.
Stress is ramped up already.
Oh, for you, but you got
and the Lions.
We need that dagger picture more, Darren, that came up with 10 years ago. Remember that dagger drive? We never see that anymore. So
that's right.
See that. Bring that out this week.
I've got it.
Do you?
Let's do it.
Well, bring it out. Bring it out. I'd like to see that baby in the 4th quarter.
Oh, yes.
Congratulations, Rome Micah. He's going to win this week because of Rome Micah. He's not going to be able to sit and tell his son, I lost the game when you were born. Come on, he's not going to. It's J.J. McCarthy. He's not going to do that. Come on.
I hadn't thought of that as extra motivation for him, but
total motivation. That and the kicker across the way. We're going to have some bad cooch this week. Let's see. There it is. That's the dagger to let people know. We used to post that. Remember when the Vikings would take a knee, which wasn't often. I mean, when they had the game in the bag, which is usually when they took a knee.
Yeah, that's right. Even last week, we got a 10-point lead, but let's give up 2 big time plays to make it interesting.
When it comes to the graphics, see what Dave just did. He is the Jared Allen of the graphic world. I mean, he is on it and he fires it right off. Very good.
All right.
Hardest working man in show business.
And I've got another collaboration to do after this, writing wise. And if you go over to Daily Norseman, there should be one up where I answered questions with Savion Mixon of the Falcoholics, and where we had 5 questions apiece, and I answered them for the Vikings. Who do you think I picked to win?
Falconholics? What a great name.
Yeah.
I drink a lot to follow that franchise, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. No, there hasn't been a whole lot of good times there. Jim asked, when will we see Mad Max Brosmer? Hopefully not at all this season. Not because
Week
they don't like
18 as we rest the starters.
Yeah.
Mad Max Brosmer. What a great name. Been fun. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for being on.
What do we say?
What do we say? How about what's an Uncle Ron? We hungry, nephew. We hungry. Have you seen that video?
I'm gonna
look that up, baby.
I'm gonna start a trend. Who's got it better than us? Who's got it better than us? That's what I'm gonna say every week. That's all I can come up with.
SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings, baby.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!